Why would you do that when there's video evidence showing that you're not? Why can't The Rock, for once in his life, simply tell us the truth? He lies about almost everything. He says exactly what you want to hear. Oh, The Rock eats 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day.
Well, I would say possible, almost 8,000 calories a day.
Sure he does. Sure he does, Rock. The Rock doesn't eat 6,000 calories a day. What's next? You think The Rock only drinks Zoa Energy? How do you think he got all that muscle? Because he's the hardest worker in the room? Because he's up at 4:30? We've seen The Rock's workouts. Using those bikini girl weights, walking around, trying to make it look like it's harder than last time when he's lifting almost nothing. Or is it the steroid? Been using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs for years, and what do you think that does?
A little bit before you and I met.
Yeah.
But just as we met.
Yeah.
I was looking at the valves and I had a complete cardiovascular workup. There was what looked to be some stuff inside the,
Like a buildup of
like
what
a
they thought was
buildup,
plaque.
what they thought was
And
plaque in the circumflex valve.
In the artery, yeah.
In the artery, right? And then when we looked at that on the old school traditional MRI and the scans, it looked like I had buildup. And then immediately the call to action was, all right, well, let's get you on this medication. It's a multi-month medication, and here we go. We got to get on it right away.
Well, aside from building a freaking physique such as this, it also causes a host of negative side effects. One of which, it sets you up for a heart attack. Your heart is going to grow bigger, which sounds good, but it's not. Left ventricular hypertrophy is not something that you want.
For most of his life in the spotlight, The Rock has been known as an absolute unit, built like a walking monument, always the biggest presence in any room. At his peak, he was pushing past 300 pounds, pure muscle, and that massive frame became the foundation of his entire image and career. Being larger than life wasn't just his look, it was the brand. But lately, fans have noticed something that feels off. New photos of The Rock have surfaced, and he looks noticeably smaller, almost unrecognizable compared to the version people are used to. He's reportedly dropped more than 60 pounds, and the change is impossible to ignore. The cartoonish muscle mass is gone, replaced with a leaner, more average build. Even his face looks different now, sharper and slimmer, missing that blocky shape that once screamed dominance. The reaction online has been split. Some say he looks healthier, more relaxed, like someone who finally stepped off the extreme grind. Others aren't feeling it at all, saying without that massive frame, he doesn't stand out the same, like he lost the thing that made him The Rock. The jokes didn't take long either, with memes flying around saying he went from the rock to the pebble. But underneath the jokes, there's a real question here. His size has always been a topic of debate. He's openly admitted to experimenting with PEDs when he was younger, and plenty of people believe that never fully stopped. Now at 53, reality hits different. A body can only take so much stress before it pushes back. Slimming down could be about protecting his health and avoiding long-term damage, but it might also be strategic. For years, Hollywood has treated him like a guaranteed money machine, always playing the same unstoppable version of himself. That safety has also boxed him in. Dropping the bulk might be his way of breaking free and finally chasing roles that don't rely on being the biggest guy on screen. The real question now is whether The Rock is finally ready to flip the script on Hollywood, on his public image, and on everything people thought they understood about him. Earlier this month, he showed up at the Venice Film Festival for his new movie, The Smashing Machine, and right away, it was clear this wasn't business as usual. This wasn't a superhero flick or a loud, glossy blockbuster built around explosions and catchphrases.
I had been very fortunate to have the career that I've had over the years and make the films that I've made. There was just voice inside of me, the little voice that, well, what if I could do more, and I want to do more, and what does that look like?
Can increase LDL, lower HDL, and does a host of negative things to your body. Hence, The Rock had to make a change, or he wouldn't be able to change ever again because he'd no longer be with us.
This film is a character-driven story centered on Mark Kerr, a dominant MMA fighter from the late 90s who climbed fast and fell even faster once addiction and personal struggles took control. The project was directed by Benny Safdie, with Emily Blunt cast as Kerr's wife, Dawn. Dwayne didn't play this one safe at all. He physically transformed to match Kerr's intimidating build and used heavy facial prosthetics on his nose, brow, cheeks, and jaw to fully disappear into the role. For the first time in his career, he wasn't selling the Rock brand. He wasn't winking at the audience or leaning on charisma. He was trying to become someone else entirely. When the movie premiered in Venice, the reaction said everything. The crowd gave him a standing ovation that lasted over 15 minutes, and he looked overwhelmed, holding back tears as it happened. Critics didn't just praise the performance, they framed it as vulnerable and career-defining, comparing it to films like The Wrestler and Raging Bull. That kind of conversation is new territory for him. He wasn't being discussed as a box office cheat code, but as a serious actor. At the press conference, he admitted this was the kind of respect he'd been chasing for years. What really stands out is the role itself. Mark Kerr represents everything his on-screen persona always avoided: loss, weakness, addiction, and public collapse. Kerr was a champion, but also a man who unraveled in front of the world. For someone whose contracts once guaranteed he could never lose a fight, stepping into that reality marks a drastic break from the old formula. Dwayne has said he's felt the urge to do something different for years, but the real question is why now? For most of his career, he's basically been playing himself. No matter if it was Fast and Furious, Jumanji, San Andreas, Skyscraper, or Jungle Cruise, it always felt like the same version on screen. The shredded action hero, cracking jokes, taking hits, saving everyone, and walking away untouched every single time.
We're in Hollywood, as we all know, and it had become about box office. And you chase the box office. And the box office in our business that we know is very loud, and it can be very resounding, and it can push you into a category and into a corner. And this is your lane, and this is what you do, and this is what people want you to be, and this is what Hollywood wants you to be. And I understood that. And I made those movies, and I liked them, and they were fun, and some were really good and did well, and some not so good. I think what I did realize is that the most important thing, I just had this burning desire and this just voice that was saying, well, again, what if? But what if there is more? And what if I can? And a lot of times it's harder for us to, or at least for me, sometimes to know what you're capable of when you've been pigeonholed into something. It's harder to know, wait, can I do that? I feel like I can. And sometimes it takes people who you love and you respect to say, you can. I don't think it's anything to prove to Hollywood as much as it's just for me now.
That formula became his calling card. It wasn't just about size, it was about being untouchable. His movies weren't built around characters, they were built around a product. And while that product pulled in massive crowds worldwide, it didn't earn him real respect as an actor. Still, the system worked, over and over again. He climbed to the top, became the highest paid actor in Hollywood, the safest box office bet in the game, and built a global brand around one unbreakable image. That's why this sudden shift feels so jarring. The weight loss, the role choices, the tone change. Something clearly forced a reset. Part of that may come down to health. Just a few months ago, Dwayne appeared on Dr. Mark Hyman's podcast and opened up about a serious health scare. He revealed that doctors initially believed one of the arteries in his heart might have a blockage. That news hit him hard, enough that he reached out for a second opinion. After undergoing advanced AI scans, doctors confirmed there was no plaque at all, just a harmless irregularity. On paper, everything checked out fine. But scares like that don't just disappear, especially at 53. Being confronted with the idea of heart disease has a way of making time feel real and limits impossible to ignore. He's pushed his body to extremes for decades. But here's the part that stood out. The podcast ran nearly 40 minutes and covered everything from gut health to nutrition, genetics, and heart risks. Yet there wasn't a single mention of steroids or performance-enhancing substances. Not once. For someone whose physique has been questioned for years, that silence spoke louder than anything he actually said. This didn't happen by accident. That podcast episode now has more than half of its viewers hitting the dislike button, and the comment section tells the real story. Scroll for 5 seconds and you'll see the same question popping up again and again. How do you talk for almost 40 minutes about his health and completely dodge the biggest issue everyone's thinking about?
Actually come off steroids. steroids. Now, love him or hate him, this guy is on the top of the charts when it comes to fake naturals. He's right up there with Mike O'Hearn. However, the show looks like it's finally coming to an end. He recently found out that he had plaque buildup in his circumflex artery from his decades of gear use. Now, the reason why this plaque buildup can be so fucking dangerous is because it can lead to heart attacks, strokes, or aneurysms, which is probably why he decided to hop off. Now, steroids in general, especially when taken in high doses, can have an extremely negative effect on your cholesterol, blood thickness, and your blood pressure, which can accelerate plaque build.
People aren't clueless. They understand that if there's one thing that could have put real strain on his body over the years, it's PED use. Whether he admits it publicly or not, that topic has followed him his entire career, and ignoring it only made the conversation louder. One Instagram user even posted a breakdown video pointing out the changes in Dwayne's body, claiming the weight loss came from him stepping off gear. What shocked people wasn't the video itself, but the response. The Rock actually jumped into the comments and shut it down, saying it was 100% not true. That kind of reply is rare for him. He almost never engages with random speculation online, which made it feel like that comment struck a nerve. According to Dwayne, the weight loss has nothing to do with health scares or steroids. He says it's all about his next project, a film called Lizard Music. In it, he plays an eccentric older character known as the Chicken Man, a role that calls for a slimmer, more fragile appearance instead of a comic book build. And on paper, that explanation works. After bulking up hard for the Smashing Machine, slimming down now serves two purposes at once. It helps him step into a completely different type of role, boosting his credibility as an actor. And it also gives him a reason to drop size without openly addressing health concerns. Still, a lot of people online aren't buying it. At 53, after decades of punishment, carrying that much muscle just isn't realistic long-term, and many fans feel like they can see right through the official explanation. Another commenter took things a step further, claiming The Rock must have been warned by a doctor that staying on gear could put him at risk for a heart attack. Others pointed to Hulk Hogan, another wrestling legend who built his entire career on size and later passed away at 71 from a heart attack. That kind of comparison sticks with people, especially when you've lived in the same world, followed a similar path, and now you're deep into your 50s.
I believe that The Rock has now lowered his doses. I don't think he's 100% natural. When you go from abusing steroids for perhaps 30 straight years, your body is going to shut down. Your HPT axis is going to be lowered. You're not going to have testosterone produced. Your LH, FSH hormones are going to be in the toilet. And so if he actually just cut out testosterone cold turkey, he would have brain fog. He would feel horrible. He wouldn't be able to use the downstairs effectively. It wouldn't be very good.
Seen through that lens, the timing of Dwayne's dramatic weight loss feels less like coincidence and more like self-preservation. But here's the part most people don't talk about. Going from years of extreme physical strain to suddenly cutting everything cold doesn't just make someone smaller, it can wreck their system. That's why many believe it wasn't a full stop at all. More likely it was a scale back. Lower intensity, more sustainable habits, enough to still look solid without pushing the body to the edge every single day. While the slimmer look might be opening doors in Hollywood, it may have quietly closed one too. Dropping size doesn't just change how casting directors see him, it changes how fans see him in another world he once ruled. Earlier in 2024, Dwayne stepped back into WWE storylines and even headlined WrestleMania alongside Roman Reigns. That appearance had fans buzzing, with supporters of Cody Rhodes convinced a full in-ring return was coming. But after seeing him in Venice, that idea feels far less realistic. Without the bulk, some of that larger-than-life presence disappears. A promo or a short cameo still makes sense, but carrying a WrestleMania main event the way he once did now feels like a long shot. One fan summed it up in a way that really stuck, saying it's hard to be the final boss when you're half the size you used to be. Without that towering presence, he's no longer the unstoppable wall that Cody Rhodes would need to overcome, unless Dwayne bulks back up again. A Rock vs. Rhodes showdown, or even Rock vs. Roman Reigns, doesn't hit the same now as it would have just a couple of years ago. And knowing everything that's been said about Dwayne's pride, it's hard to imagine him stepping into a face-off where he looks visibly smaller than the guy across from him. What makes this more interesting is that Dwayne isn't the only wrestler turned actor going through this shift. Back in 2024, fans noticed a similar transformation with Dave Bautista. New photos surfaced showing him far leaner than the thick, muscle-heavy build that defined his peak wrestling years.
And then I noticed, like, the more I trimmed down, the better I felt. And I also noticed the more I trimmed down, the better I looked on camera, the better I looked next to other actors.
He's accomplished is not something I'm after.
I like to think that I'm a character actor and I'm after diverse roles. I think we all want different things.
Bautista is slightly older than The Rock, and his decision to downsize carried the same quiet message. At a certain age, hauling around that much mass just isn't realistic anymore. The risks add up fast, and the toll on the body isn't worth it. Bautista was open about this after bulking past 300 pounds for Knock at the Cabin. He admitted the size felt miserable, heavy, and draining. Once filming wrapped, he leaned out through diet changes, intermittent fasting, and jiu-jitsu, explaining that the lighter frame made him feel healthier, more mobile, and more at ease in his own skin. For Bautista, that comfort was a bonus, but the main driver was survival and longevity. And it's not random that both his transformation and The Rock's happened around the same stage of life. That's where the comparison really gets interesting, because while they've landed in similar physical places, their paths in Hollywood couldn't be more different from the jump. Bautista never chased fame the way The Rock did, and that difference matters. Yes, he broke out in Guardians of the Galaxy, but instead of cashing in with copy-paste action roles, he took a different route. He deliberately went after directors who cared about performance and character, not just explosions and opening weekend numbers. That's how he ended up in films like Blade Runner 2049, Dune, and Knives Out. Those roles didn't turn him into a cartoon action hero, but they earned him respect in serious film circles. Bautista became a household name in a quieter, more meaningful way. Critics took him seriously. Directors trusted him. He wasn't just seen as a former wrestler with muscles, but as a legit actor who could disappear into a role. Bautista approaches acting like a student, someone willing to look foolish, uncomfortable, or weak, if that's what the character demands. For Dwayne, it's always been different. His choices have been about optics first. How dominant does he look? How untouchable is the character? How many tickets does the movie sell? How does it feed the brand and the businesses attached to it? Ego has always been part of the equation, and that's why the timing of The Smashing Machine and the upcoming Lizard music feels so telling. In the span of just 2 projects, he's gone to opposite extremes, bulking up to play Mark Kerr, then shrinking down to portray a fragile, older man. On the surface, those moves look contradictory. At the core, they're the same play, an attempt to conquer the one thing that's always escaped him. Because no matter how dominant his box office run has been, no matter the fame or money, there's one label he's never fully earned: credible actor. And the cracks in his old formula have already started showing. Black Adam was sold as his passion project, the movie that would reshape the DC universe. Instead, it flopped. Worse than that, reports painted him as trying to hijack the franchise, pushing for Henry Cavill's Superman return, while positioning himself as the center of DC's future.
The Rock has been outed for lying not once, twice, 3 times, but multiple times. For example, you all remember The Rock said, "Hey, this is my first time in this fast food restaurant."
This is the very first time that I have ever tried an In-N-Out burger.
It's my first time eating this burger and fries. It was his third, with evidence. Why lie about it being your first time in a fast food chain?
That moment exposed something audiences hadn't fully seen before, and once that curtain slipped, it didn't go back into place. When the movie collapsed, the plan collapsed with it, and Dwayne was quietly moved out of the spotlight. Not long after that came Red One, his big holiday release, which quickly became a punchline online. People mocked it as another bloated studio project, all gloss and no soul, and streaming didn't save him either. Films like Red Notice were hyped as record-breaking hits, but critics shredded them, reinforcing the idea that his movies had turned into empty products, built more on branding than storytelling. At the same time, the myths around him started cracking. For years, audiences bought into the People's Champ image completely. At one point, polls even showed nearly half of Americans saying they wanted him to run for president. He was sold as the ultimate success story, the guy who could do no wrong. But that shine has faded. More people now see him as manufactured, a carefully controlled character, no different from the persona he once played in wrestling. His film career only fed that perception. Despite all the money and fame, Dwayne has never been taken seriously as an actor. And that's why these new projects feel different. This doesn't come across like just another role choice. It feels like a full rebrand, a push to finally earn respect that slipped past him for decades. The stakes stretch beyond movies. His entire business empire is built on image. Terramana Tequila, Zoe Energy, and Under Armour Project Rock all depend on the idea of a superhuman figure. That raises an uncomfortable question. What happens to that empire if the image changes? A slimmer Rock might be healthier, sure, but he's also farther away from the comic book figure those brands were built around. It's a gamble. Still, it might work, because here's the truth. People admired him, even idolized him, but they never really related to him. They wanted him as president because he represented power and success, not because he felt like one of them. Now that age is starting to show in his face and the bulk is gone, Dwayne finally has room to present something different. Not the flawless superhero, but a version that leans into vulnerability instead of perfection. For once, it actually feels genuine, or at least more honest than the usual hardest worker in the room routine that people have grown used to. The Smashing Machine is set to release on October 3rd, 2025, and if it connects with audiences, this could be a turning point. A moment where he doubles down on riskier roles and slowly steps away from the safe, formula-driven blockbusters that defined his run. There's a world where he shocks everyone and earns real respect as an actor. But even if that happens, it won't be quick. He spent the last 15 years building an invincible, almost cartoonish image, and tearing that down takes time. This feels less like a reinvention and more like the first crack in the armor. Now I want to hear what you think. Do you believe this is a real change or just another calculated move? Drop your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the Beyond Fame channel, share it with others, and I'll see you on the next one.